Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible success stories in the modern world. How Singapore went from being a struggling little island to one of the most advanced and prosperous cities globally. Just a few decades ago, Singapore was a swampy backwater with limited resources and a struggling economy. Now, it's a powerhouse. So, grab a snack, sit back, and let's unpack how this remarkable transformation happened. Chapter 1. Was Singapore really a slum before? Let's start with the big question. Was Singapore really a slum? Well, not quite. But back in the 1960s, things weren't exactly rosy. Singapore had just gained independence from Malaysia in 1965, and honestly, it was like being thrown into the deep end of the pool without a life jacket. There was widespread poverty, unemployment, and a severe housing crisis. Imagine this: overcrowded shophouses with entire families crammed into tiny rooms. Streets were muddy, and sanitation, let's just say it wasn't ideal. In fact, Singapore was ranked as one of the poorest countries in the world back then. It's hard to believe, right? But that's where the story begins. Chapter 2. What specific challenges did Singapore face? Now, let's paint the full picture. Singapore's challenges weren't just about poverty. First, there was a lack of natural resources. No oil, no water supply, no land, nothing. Then there was the multi-ethnic population. On the surface, diversity is great, but back then, it came with racial tensions and mistrust. Oh, and let's not forget about its strategic location. Sure, being a port city sounds cool, but back then, it made Singapore vulnerable to being a pawn in geopolitical conflicts. The British had just withdrawn their military presence too, which meant no external protection. And as if all that wasn't enough, the unemployment rate was skyrocketing and corruption was rampant. It felt like the odds were stacked against this tiny island. Chapter 3. How did Singapore achieve such rapid development? Here's where the story gets exciting. Enter Lee Kuan Yew and his team. They had a vision, and boy, did they mean business. Their first move? They tackled housing. The Housing Development Board, or HDB, was established to provide affordable homes. In just a few years, they built thousands of apartments, giving people not just a roof over their heads, but also a sense of pride and ownership. Fun fact: Singapore's public housing is so nice that people from other countries often mistake it for private luxury condos. Wild, right? Next up, they focused on industrialization. They invited multinational corporations to set up shop in Singapore, offering tax incentives and a business-friendly environment. At the same time, they invested heavily in education and skills training. This meant creating a workforce that was not just employable, but exceptional. Chapter 4. What were the key milestones in this transformation? If we're talking milestones, we've got to highlight a few big ones. Independence in 1965. This was when Singapore had to fend for itself. No resources, no support, but lots of determination. Formation of the Economic Development Board, EDB. This agency helped attract foreign investments and laid the foundation for Singapore's industrial economy. Water agreements with Malaysia. Securing a water supply was crucial. Singapore worked on self-sufficiency by investing in desalination and water recycling technology. Changi Airport opening in 1981. This made Singapore a major aviation hub and a gateway to Asia. The Clean and Green campaigns. Singapore didn't just want to be rich, it wanted to be livable. Planting trees, reducing pollution, and enforcing strict cleanliness standards made a huge difference. And the list goes on. Every decade brought new innovations and achievements. Chapter 5. Who were the main leaders? Behind this transformation, you can't talk about Singapore's success without mentioning Lee Kuan Yew. He was the country's first prime minister and his vision was unmatched. But he didn't do it alone. People like Goh Keng Swee, the architect of Singapore's economy, and S. Rajaratnam, who shaped its foreign policy, played crucial roles too. These guys weren't just politicians, they were problem solvers. They made tough decisions, like enforcing strict anti-corruption laws and even controlling the media to maintain stability. Chapter 6. What strategies did the government use? Singapore's government had a clear strategy. First, they prioritized education. Schools didn't just teach subjects. They prepared students for jobs in growing industries. Second, they maintained a zero-tolerance policy for corruption. This built trust and attracted foreign investments. And here's the kicker. They turned weaknesses into strengths. No water? Fine. They'd become leaders in water technology. No land? Great. They'd build vertically and reclaim land from the sea. Everything was about innovation and efficiency. Chapter 7. Can other countries replicate Singapore's success? This is a tricky one. In theory, yes, but in practice, it's complicated. Singapore's small size made it easier to implement policies quickly. Plus, its centralized government meant decisions could be enforced without much opposition. But here's the thing. Other countries can definitely learn from Singapore's focus on education, anti-corruption, and long-term planning. It's all about adapting the lessons to fit their unique circumstances. Chapter 8. What makes Singapore's approach unique? What makes Singapore's story so unique is its focus on sustainability and resilience. For instance, the government plans decades ahead. They're constantly thinking about how to keep the city livable and competitive, even with challenges like climate change. And let's not forget the emphasis on being multicultural. Singapore embraced its diversity, turning it into a strength rather than a weakness. Chapter 9. What makes Singapore a super city? Today, Singapore is a global financial hub, a tech hotspot, and one of the most connected cities in the world. It's home to world-class infrastructure like Marina Bay Sands, the Gardens by the Bay, and Changi Airport. But beyond the fancy buildings, it's the quality of life that stands out. Low crime rates, excellent healthcare, and a clean environment make it one of the best places to live. Chapter 10. Does Singapore still face challenges? Of course, no place is perfect. Singapore still grapples with issues like income inequality, an aging population, and reliance on foreign labor. Housing affordability is another hot topic. But what's impressive is how the government proactively addresses these challenges. Conclusion. So there you have it. Singapore's journey from a struggling island to a super city is nothing short of inspirational. It's a story of resilience, innovation, and bold leadership. And the best part? It shows us that no matter how tough the odds, transformation is always possible. Thanks for sticking with this incredible story. If you found it as fascinating as I did, don't forget to share your thoughts. Until next time, take care.